Scene 3. "Where are we going?" Kit asked for the third time, looking up at the dangerous woman who'd said her name was Zara. Her tall, soft leather boots padded silently while Kit's bare feet slapped on the cobbles. Zara moved with a sinuous grace, cat-like, while Kit, who'd shot up nearly a handspan since the last harvest, her legs longer but still coltish, felt like a puppet with half-cut strings in comparison. "I like your hair," Kit said, partly because it was true, and mostly because the woman's silence was starting to make her stomach churn for fear of what exactly these people wanted with her. She kept talking to distract her from her unease. "You're truly Sahrian. I've heard tales of the sun blinds you if you stare, they say. Any truth to that? Have you met any sultans or evil viziers?" One of her favourite roles was playing the cunning thief who steals a lamp. Uncle Thomas had rigged the prop to spew blue smoke, and then Cousin Dickon would jump out of a trapdoor painted blue from head to toe as the jinn, while Cousins Alice, Joan and Marjorie danced and writhed as the harem. Joan couldn't act to save her life, but she had paps like melons that jiggled like a tavern wench's in a lusty galliard, so she didn't need to. That act always got good coin. The thought made her raw guilt resurface for abandoning them with the mess she'd made, but she hadn't had a choice. Can a jinn really grant wishes? Kit wasn't even sure jinn were real, but fae certainly were, so why not jinn? "Why do they live in lamps?" Zara rolled her eyes and looked down at Kit. "They don't grant wishes and aren't imprisoned in lamps." Her voice was rich, with a rough, breathy quality that gave Kit goosebumps. "Those are dusk-ring fancies, not fact. I've never met a sultan myself, and evil viziers are beheaded rather swiftly, so most tend to behave themselves. The Sunward lands are vast, and they aren't all silks and sorcery." Dodging a pile of manure, Kit frowned. The glow feathers were closing, their light dimming as the frond-like petals closed, and the gloam was closing in. A tattered broadside fluttered in the muck, its woodcut of a gutted doxy half torn. Kit shivered, recalling Nubs's shouted headline. She looked back up at Zara. "If jinn don't grant wishes or live in lamps, what do they do?" "Strangle ugly, freckled girls who ask far too many stupid questions and pretend to be boys." Zara's eyes flashed, and Kit swore her irises changed from amber to molten gold for a moment. But she also caught a fleeting smirk on the woman's lips. Not cruel, more like a sister sparing a jest. All the same, Kit glued her gob shut and walked beside Zara in silence, nervous of the gathering shadows. The woman's barbs stung, but Kit had learned to let comments like that go a long time ago. She knew she was ugly and spotted, a carrot-haired runt all knees and elbows. That was her father's legacy, a man she'd never known who didn't even give her a name. Some gentleman in some town who swived her mother. The Tarletons were all comely and dark-haired with big blue eyes. Kit was none of those things. She hadn't known her mother either. She died of the fever when Kit was a babe, but Meg said she was a sharp-tongued, raven-haired beauty who could dance like a succubus. Even though Zara unnerved Kit, she was glad for the other woman's company. Alone in this city, she'd likely end up ravished in a gutter by some poxy cur's cankered yard, or with a bodkin in her kidney. Likely both, she wagered. And if there truly was a fiend stalking young women, pulling the folded broadside out of her shirt, she busied herself with trying to make out the words, but soon gave up. Aunt Meg knew her letters and had tried to teach Kit, but the words constantly shifted and rearranged on the paper, like they were swimming in turbulent water or dancing in heat shimmer. Zara snatched the paper from Kit and laughed. "Better not let Jasmine see this." She tore it up and tossed the scraps in the gutter. "Hoy!" Kit protested. "That cost me a farthing." "I wouldn't wipe my arse with that ignorant, hyperbolical rot," Zara said. "And that's not what an elephant looks like anyway." You've seen one? Aye, magnificent animals. Noble. She glanced at Kit. How old are you? 18, Kit lied. She didn't know for certain. Aunt Meg said she'd been born when the troop was across the channel in Eldrickle. They travelled from place to place, and rarely kept track of the moons between stops, or even paid attention to when it was in the current monarch's reign. Her birth was some time after the Virgin Queen's coronation, though, so she definitely wasn't yet 19 harvests old, and she couldn't be so young as 15 unless she'd had her first moonblood unusually early. "'Tis a good thing the black likes you," Zara commented. "The last thief lost a hand." "I didn't pinch," Kit began, her mind spinning on the tortures these rogues had in store for her. She considered bolting, and not for the first time. But Zara looked like she could outrun a hound. The woman cut her off with a sharp hand. "Don't lie to me. I haven't the patience or the captain's sense of humour. 'Tis twixt your wee paps, isn't it?" "Aye," Kit admitted, after a short moment of hesitation. "What are you going to do with me?" "Me? Nothing, unless you do what you're thinking of doing and run. I'm delivering you to the Black. He'll decide your fate. Here we are." Kit looked up at the sagging building, framed by blackened oak beams. Its wattle and daub walls were crumbling, and the stone foundation is slick with moss. A faded sign, painted with a crimson velvet ribbon, swung above the warped oak door, its carved script glowing faintly under sputtering torches. Tattered curtains fluttered from splintered balconies. A dock worker stepped out, adjusting his slops, and doffed his cap to Zara before strolling down the street, whistling, while another man in crumpled doublet and patched hose greeted him in passing and entered. Kit wrinkled her nose and looked up at Zara with suspicion. "'Tis a bawdy house." "Aye, you're very perceptive. 'Tis indeed a bawdy house. Fancies itself the bawdiest in all the Baywalk stews." "I ain't going in there," Kit protested, shaking her head and stepping back a pace as she fingered her bodkin. She'd heard plenty of stories about girls being forced into indenture in places like this. Reaching under her binding, she drew out the purse and tossed it to Zara, who caught it with one hand, an amused expression playing across her lips. "How long d'you think you'll last in these stews on your own, girl? 1 bloom close? 2? The crews working these streets don't fancy lone foists encroaching on their territory. They'll strangle you by your innards as a warning to others, and that's if you're not knifed in your kidney for the shirt on your back. Either way, you'll be swived and buggered raw first." Kit set her jaw firmly. "I'll take my chances." "You're just all fire and gall, aren't you? Captain isn't a bawd, and he doesn't want you for your cunt, stupid girl. I suspect he's after your nimble fingers." She shook her head and headed up the steps, waving for Kit to follow. "We just rent rooms here.